Meurtriere, and I'm back with another episode of the March of the Black and Gold Lance, our 2-day medieval backpacking trip and handcarting expedition, where in this video we're going to look more at the journey that brought us to our camp that night, and how we hiked in armor and without, how we got the cart to the camp, and some of the trials and tribulations we faced there. So first off, to start, the hike was about 2.5 miles. It was 2.2 miles on paper, but I had it tracked because of all the backtracking that we ended up doing, and the rests that we took, and the fact that different parts of the party split up at different sections. 2.5 miles is pretty much the average for the amount of hiking that we did then. We hiked a fairly even dirt road, as you see here, for about 1.5 miles, and that was the easy part, and we were well and truly glad to have that part to look forward to. Once we got to a specific spot, as you'll see later, the road narrowed and became a lot more treacherous and rocky. Thankfully, none of the road or path was uphill or downhill too much. It was all pretty level, and it would be essentially an easy hike for anyone on foot. Of course, the handcart made it a little bit interesting. But here we're resting a little bit, and what we did along this hike was we tried to do a couple different military exercises and drills. And you'll see here, what we're trying to do is set up a couple different marching orders. So, as we're marching here, you'll see that Brian, our sergeant, is in front protecting the squire. I am over to the left of the cart, and now we're said fall in, so we're falling in tight formation. The squire is behind me, giving me situational awareness. Our spearman and our lady are on one side of the cart, far away from the enemy. Say if the enemy in this case was essentially where the camera is for ease of clarity. And then the archer would have been behind, able to shoot her arrows from cover. See there, you've called for an enemy from behind. As we turn the cart to the side, blocking the road, using it as a barrier, we form ranks behind it. Kaylin has drawn her arrows and is ready to fire, and you see Nathan off in the distance running away. So that was a very fun one. I really thoroughly enjoyed that. Using the cart as a barrier really was an intelligent idea, because you would want to use your baggage trains as a form of defense if you could. The Hussite Wagenburg was really good at using that tactics. They employed several wagons in a large ring, and they just wrapped them around at any time to basically create a fortification. And then they had handgunners and spearmen and pavis users in the gaps and such. So they were a formidable fighting force. Of course, we're taking some breaks. The road is certainly easy at this point. No doubt about that. It's a little bit hot, for sure. We're in our armor. We're in the shade plenty of the time. However, the high that day was 92 Fahrenheit, so... And this is about 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. This main hike is happening. Overall, we set out about late like noon 30, maybe, and we ended up hiking until about 5:30, so gives you an idea of how long those 2.5 miles took. It's really like 2 hours per mile. And of course, everyone was struggling a little bit with their packs. Not too bad, some of them. Of course, people were carrying different amounts of gear. My squire here carrying not only one bedroll, but he's carrying mine as well. He's got 2 bedrolls and my extra clothing and stuff, so he's definitely laden down. But he's carrying it like a champ. Our walking sticks, which I thought would be useful, they ended up getting in the way more often than not. When we needed to grab the cart and help carry it or something, it became a liability that you had to carry this 6 or 7 foot pole. So in the future, I think spears are going to be totally useful still in terms of a military context, but it might be more beneficial to maybe make the cart more well able to carry them. As you can see, we had to fiddle with some of the straps on the cots just to keep them mounted on top of the cart. Beautiful day. It's a lovely, lovely area. Robbers Cave State Park in Wilburton, Oklahoma is where we did this. Fantastic journey. You can see there the cart is holding up fine, and even through the hardships that we put it through, there was only a slight amount of visible wear in it at the end of the entire expedition, and I was absolutely surprised we didn't break any axle or wheel or anything. It held up miraculously. But you can see here, as the rocks begin to get bigger, the trail narrows just a little bit, that there's a little bit more patience and more caution that's required of us. There's a lot of ending up just reshifting the weight of the cart, especially with these long poles attached to the side. That becomes a frequent occurrence, and I think in the future we're going to have to develop a specific carrying device, like an attachment or a rack for these pole arms and poles. But here you can see it. We've got 4 people on the cart just to kind of help steady it, help get some of the wheels a break. And I'm over there just carrying 3 pole arms. We're all quite hot and exhausted at this point, but we still got plenty of water, so we're still good to press on. There, that road becomes a little bit, as you can see, more treacherous. And we have Mike there. He's holding a rope that's attached to the bottom of the tailgate, and that helps alleviate some of the pressure from the wheels again. But for the most part, the cart is still rolling at this point. You can see when we go over a rock that's more than like 3 inches tall, that's when we start to become nervous about the cart. And this is a downhill grade right here, so we are being very cautious of it and taking it easy, looking and plotting our trajectory very carefully. You'll notice that you can't just have one driver, right? The driver needs to be supported, just like everyone needs to be supported in the Lance. It's a good opportunity for teamwork. Like here, we're just literally carrying it over some of these rocks. The wheels aren't even rolling. Then we set it down, etc. We had Brian go up front and kind of scout and make sure that he had a good area. Like a carter was able to pretty much tell us where he wanted the cart to go, and it was our job to help him and to make this happen. So either someone would always be at the back, and then we'd have a couple people on the wheels just to help move it over. See, we've got a large crack in the concrete, so we just lift it over. And like I said, this handcart weighs about 200 pounds fully loaded. That's including the weight of the handcart. So it's not a super light object to be carrying around. And especially when we've been hiking several miles that day, it's no easy feat. So yeah, we're all definitely feeling it at this point. You see my square, he's switched to carrying his Martibo sack on a spear. Not sure if that worked for him too well, but you know, relieve some pressure points on the pack or something. So for water on this hike, we brought with us, each of us brought a water bottle or canteen of a vaguely historical design. But our problem was we had assigned one person to carry the extra water. What we should have much rather done is disperse that extra water between all of us. So later on, what we ended up doing when the trail got particularly rough was we just discarded our packs and kept moving the cart. Here, taking a brief rest. But by discarding our packs and moving the cart, we left the water behind by a quarter of a mile or half a mile or something like that. So we were moving the rocky road. We were moving the cart over rocky terrain, and we had our water supply had run low, and we had neglected to bring our extra one. So we had to send someone back who was dehydrated. back to find those backpacks and bring them back to the camp. In my armor, I was definitely feeling a little bit tired. However, the biggest part of me that was tired was that was sore were on my hips because my fold wasn't fitting correctly. I am so glad that I did not wear my arm harness. Realistically, if I was a knight and I'm on a chevauchée, I'm probably going to be taking off some of that kit, and the arm harness I think is the first to go in terms of mobility. But here you can see the trail is much narrower now, lots of rocks. We've discarded our packs at this point, my helmet's gone, and it's all about just negotiating the terrain, just pieces by pieces. With a pack horse, this would not have been a problem. Heck, with a four-wheeled wagon, this would probably be a little bit easier. Having the two wheels makes it so that there's a large amount of shock when one wheel hits the ground. If I had four, that would be spread out so that it would be able to gradually roll off of those high points instead of just come crashing down. But yeah, most of the time we ended up just carrying it. In this last maybe half a mile or 0.7 miles of the trail, that's all we did was pick it up, us four, and set it down at a good spot and roll it for like a few feet and just keep moving. There's actually a stream crossing involved here that was dry, of course, thankfully, but it required some skill in negotiating nonetheless, and definitely some teamwork in talking it through. We talked a lot about just ditching the cart at some point, but I was glad that we ended up persevering. We didn't bring the cart all the way to the campsite because the campsite was across a stream, so we left an empty cart just around the corner from the stream, so we were able to press on further past this point. But once we had finally arrived at camp, we were very glad to have our stuff. One thing we did was we used these cots, we unfurled them, and they are basically, like I said, they're stretchers, so we just used the stretchers to haul some goods. And that worked very well for us to carry some goods in several trips. Now the heat of the day is sneaking up on us, and Nathan has decided to doff his overlayer. Thankfully, there was no getting lost involved. This path was pretty straight with a few crossings of other paths, and we just had to make sure we were going the right way, but there wasn't really a chance where the trail had disappeared or something. It was dense forest with a narrow trail in between, so thankfully no chance for getting completely lost there. And with that, we began to make our way towards camp again, scouting out the future distance and following where the trail led. It was a hard and arduous journey for sure, and some of us were discouraged, and we all reached our breaking point, but we passed it, and that little bit of think you don't have anything left and then you give it some more and get your second wind, that is a feeling that I would not trade for anything. These uncontrolled experiments where really something could have gone horribly wrong, we could have all got hurt. But because we persevered and we pushed through it, we weren't relaxed about it. This was as far as we were concerned, a real expedition. And we had to take it seriously because the woods will kill you if you don't take it seriously, especially as we were dehydrated and we knew where the campsite was, but we had no really hard idea on how far our distances were. But like I say, once we made it to camp, we started our fire going and got some food, and we were all the happier and merrier to have some rest. And in the next video, we'll talk about our food and our camp situation and a little bit of the journey home. Until next time, folks, Godspeed, friends.